Hello, thanks for coming back to Code with Me, round two. This is John Brown. Getting over a little bit of a cold, so sorry if my voice sounds a little weird. This is going to be a little bit longer project because we're actually going to show you three different projects. Last time we created one thing and I ended it there, and this time I wanted to show you what happens when you create one thing, iterate on it a little bit, have another thing, and then iterate on that a little bit, and have another thing. This is the first project that we're going to create. This is the second one. Woo! Fun. I like it. Really pretty. And this is the third one. This fun lava Minecrafty looking thing. So this is about 2 hours of total development time. These are all just sketches again. Realize that this is just for fun and just meant as a code exploration. Enjoy. I started the process of actually recording a little bit earlier this time. I was clicking around a CodePen. I realized I'm going to make another video, so I turned on the screen capture. And I saw this WebGL experiment. And last time I talked about how I usually do flat canvas geometric stuff. And I don't do a lot of WebGL, but I thought, let's try something new. Let's push ourselves in a different direction. And let's make something in WebGL. So this is going to be the process of me basically fumbling my way through making something interesting in WebGL. So I forked this, and I used it as boilerplate for setting up the scene in 3D. There's cameras and a scene and a render loop and materials. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. So using something else to jump off from is, in this case, pretty good. Normally I like to set all this up, but there's just a lot of it to do, and you didn't want to watch me spend half an hour setting it all up. So once I had sort of an idea, I wanted to work on some geometry in WebGL. I went and clicked around at some places where I normally go. Bees and Bombs is great for these looping geometric animations. I recently discovered Pinterest, which is pretty amazing, and Gmonk, who I'm a huge fan of, has some really great boards. And so I sort of clicked around in here and saw a bunch of these. These are a bunch of boxes that are in space, just like what the example that I chose. So I clicked on here, trying to get a little bit of inspiration. Landed on this blue piece, and something about it really struck me. I liked the lights. I liked the stacked idea of it. So I decided to do a little bit of going down the rabbit hole on the internet and finding out about this piece. And I got to learn about Jean-Pierre Ivaral, who is the artist behind this. This is me going through a Facebook page about him. He's doing a Google image search of the actual image to find more stuff by him. He does a lot of really, really cool things. And there's a couple of pieces in here that I could have chosen to try something, and I might do it in the future, but clicking around on here and seeing the different work he's done with these stacked pieces, these stacked geometric pieces, is pretty great. I love it. This is one of the great things about doing some creative coding and just code exploration is you get to learn about things and people that you might never get to. This Jean-Pierre coined the phrase numerical art, which is pretty rad because that's basically what we're making when we get down to it. So we're going to use this blue stacked example, and we're going to go off of that and try to make something interesting, sort of keeping that in mind as a guiding post for us. So here's where we get down to the code. Hope you're still with me. That's where the fun starts. I had that scene, but it turns out don't really need that scene in the way that it was created. So I ended up repositioning all of those blocks that were in that scene into a grid. It wasn't chaotic anymore. We were going to do something very ordered. So again, I only used the fork as very basic boilerplate. So that's me hitting up Stack Overflow. You'll see that probably half a dozen or so times in this video. It's one of those, recording this is showing you the warts and all of the process. Man, I swear, if your doctor Googled things as much as I have to Google things, and basically as much as programmers in general have to Google, you would never go to that doctor. There's so much to remember. Never feel like you're less of a programmer if you can't remember a lot of those things. Everybody does it. So here I am, just started playing with these ideas of stacking up these boxes. These are all, right next to each other, creating a giant grid. And right around here is where we get the basic general idea of that piece that we were looking at. It doesn't have extending pieces out to the side, and it's not flat in the center, but this is a very good point that we got to, that we can look at it and say, okay, here's where we're at. What do we want to do next? So I started messing around with the lighting a little bit. This is me just sort of throwing things against the wall and seeing what's going to stick. I decided, okay, we've got this. Let's make it move. So put in the tick animations, and let's try and remember how to make these boxes animate. There it is. This is in fast motion, so that is going very slow. Even though we're in fast motion, that is bouncing around a lot. So, this is the general idea that we want, but that is obviously not the actual behavior. That's the great thing about coding in general, and especially this sort of thing, is that so much of it is failure. It's like 99% failure. Look at this. This is in real time. This is just me trying to put in a pretty simple equation and having those values turned up way too high and just getting this weirdly interesting, chaotic pattern. And it's all very ordered if you could look at it from a big picture enough. But man, as soon as you start putting in equations, you get some crazy things if you don't have your values in the right order. But like I was saying, coding is like 99% failure. You try something just like this. You try these things over and over and over and over again. And sometimes they explode and they blow up your whole process. Sometimes they're almost exactly what you want. You have to tweak it, 100 more times. But it's a trial and error, especially in this field of creating something just for the sake of pure aesthetic purposes. So I have been getting this, as I'm working around on this sort of wave idea is starting to coalesce in my head of these patterns. So right around here I start, playing with the sign and making it undulate and then animating it just like this. This is fun. Thinking, okay, maybe this is the direction I can go in. And then the problem with this is, and you're going to see with the warts and all idea, is it's just a lot of trial and error. This is sped up, but I take a long time to try a bunch of things and see what's going to work and see what I like. I'm not a mathematician, so I don't know the exact precise things that I'm trying to do from a mathematical standpoint, so it takes me a while to stumble around and get to those things. But I have a great time doing it and exploring. So here's a bunch of undulating waves. Playing with frequency, amplitude, pretty much everything that goes into waves, going on the Y and the X axis. Or I guess the Z and the X axis. So this is sort of where I'm netting out right here. So it's got this interference pattern of a couple waves that are moving around. It's right around this time where I showed it to my wife, and she said, it's fine, it's interesting, but maybe you should sleep on it. And that's great advice for a lot of these things. Is you're never going to hit a home run every time you sit down and do these things. This is a sketch. This is just an idea. You go into these things to create something expressive, and you don't usually know where you're trying to get to. So when you don't get anywhere, that's kind of expected. Putting it aside and coming back later is always a great idea. So she told me to go to bed, and I did. This is me the next day. And I had this idea while I was, sleeping or laying in bed of, all right, so maybe this, undulation thing isn't working. Maybe we can do a point that's moving around, and everything can have sort of a fall off from there. So I woke up the next morning, jumped on the computer, started playing around with that. So you can see the idea of this fallout. Here's some more Stack Overflow, like I said. There's a lot of Stack Overflow in this video. The idea of you are at one point and sort of things cascade down from there. So this right here, this is what I was sort of hoping for. There's this center point and everything moves down around it. Looks like a little gopher running around underneath all of these boxes. So I set it aside. Within about 5 minutes the next morning, I had figured out, okay, cool, this is actually more interesting than what I was working on. So stepping back and coming at things with a fresh perspective is always a great idea. Right around here, I think I have already started to put in the point that's being animated is no longer, or the point that's being raised is no longer animated. It's actually wherever the mouse is. And that is interesting because it takes it from just a steady animation into an interactive piece. And that is great. Those are two completely different ideas and directions that I've already taken this project. So right here I'm playing around with the color. Instead of it just raising, let's see what happens when it raises, it changes to a different color. So when it's low, it's black. When it raises up, it's red. This is a more warts and all. I forgot something very simple in this process to reset the colors. So I spent probably like 5 or 10 minutes stumbling around in here. There we go. That's perfect. That's what I was looking for. It's this little sort of spotlighty effect. Looks like, a pimple on a bunch of boxes, which is weird in retrospect now that I'm looking at it. And then in addition to just moving it around, I thought, what happens if I click on it and I can create those bumps, and then they could be, additive bumps. So in addition to on mouse move, I start putting in some on mouse click pieces. There we go. So wherever you go and you click on it, it raises it up. It's like a Fortress of Solitude. It's great. I love this thing. At this point I was like, yes, this is worth recording on. This is going to be worth talking about. If it had just been that undulation before, I would not have I wouldn't have really wanted to have released it. But you keep trying, you keep iterating, and you create something interesting. This is me playing with the color, and here's where it's like, oh yes, this is really, really rad. I forked it around this point as well, so this is another one of the sketch options that you can click on and follow a link to in the description. So much fun to make. This one was really great. I took a small break, came back a couple hours later. I kept playing with the color, then I was like, you know what, that's not right. Let's try something different. So I started messing around with the color, just trying to get inspired to do something a little bit more, and I did this, and I was like, yes, this is great. This looks like lava. Let's make this move. This would be a lot of fun to play with and make it like move in an interesting way. So Perlin Noise is what I'm going to use here, and you should look up Perlin Noise. It's a really great black to white, like undulating mesh of information that you can then use to create fun, fluid animations. It's very complicated to describe, but I'm going to put it in here and watch this. Look at that. This is in real time. This is an accident, but this looks really, really fun. I love the way that it looks. This is part of that thing where you just put in a bunch of values and they just explode, and they're not necessarily what you want, but they look really interesting. But this is actually what I was going for, using this Perlin noise idea of creating these masses that move and wander around like this. So I was like, yes, this is actually exactly what I was seeing in my head. So I move all the pieces together to make them more of like a solid mass. I'm playing with the size of the boxes and the number of boxes that are in the scene. Playing with it too much, accidentally put 8,000 in one of these these scales, crashed the browser. I think I did that last time as well. That's just a thing that's going to happen. Thankfully, I had saved, and this is exactly what I was seeing in my head, and that doesn't happen to me often. Usually, it takes a lot longer to get to these points, but. And that's it. Those are the 3 sketches that I did for round 2. Hope you enjoyed watching. There's a lot of concepts that I threw out in there, Perlin Noise and WebGL, and if you find any of these things interesting that you saw, definitely do some exploring and find something that speaks to you from a coding perspective. Remember, these are just meant as explorations of ideas. These are basically throwaways. These wouldn't go up in galleries, just like something in your sketchbook wouldn't go into a gallery just because you made it in an afternoon. Have fun, try a bunch of stuff, fail at a bunch of stuff, bang your head against a wall, get through that wall, and just have a great time. All right, thanks for watching.